Hello and welcome to the 105th episode of Growing Up Geek, the weekly podcast for geek entertainment and nostalgia. My name is Brad and I'm joined by my brother Rob.
Scaling the Avatower.
Whoa!
Whoa!
What does it mean?
More on that to come later, folks. But first,
how you doing?
I'm doing all right.
That's good.
Doing good. Back from things.
What do you...
You know what annoys me is that whenever holidays happen, other countries and other businesses that I don't work for don't realize this.
Yeah.
And so whenever I come back from the holiday, I'm like, oh, that was great. And then it's just like, yes, but here's a huge pile of things that everybody sent you on the way. So that's been my week.
Oh, that's too bad.
How have you been?
It's been a little bit better. Before I came upstairs to record this, I noticed I had Battlestar Galactica Disc 2, and I just need to owe all the geeks out there a huge apology. I have never seen this show, and I know that's like enough to revoke my cred right there, but I have started it. So far, so good. Really enjoying it, and very film-like show. And the best sci-fi, I find, is the sci-fi where people are people. You know, they go about their lives, they do their jobs. Like in the beginning of Alien, when they all wake up and talk about money, you know, because that's the thing they're interested in. And that's what people do, you know, and Battlestar is like that. People have jobs, people have relationships, all in the midst of
this. Is this the new Battlestar on Sci-Fi?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And there's some history with us in this show because our dad actually was into the 70s Battlestar Galactica, and we still have some of those drawings that he drew of like Cylon ships and cockpits and stuff. And so for me to see it like kind of, it's definitely an homage to the original show. It almost takes place after those events. So
the timeline is kind of weird. Like they sort of mess with people who know of the original show, just like where that takes place is kind of.
But like they bust up, you know, the original fighters out of like a museum in order to use them, and I just think it's a really well-handled show so far. Looking forward to it. But anyway, that's what I've been up to.
I gotta say, just like along that line of what you were saying about sci-fi, I picked up yet another issue of The Walking Dead.
Of course.
Really, just because I've been wanting to since reading the first few that we reviewed, and man, that is all about how people are normal. You know, like there's like really like 5% zombie in that story.
Yeah.
The rest of it is just people just surviving, and I think it's brilliant, and I can't wait till I think AMC was rumored to be working on it as a TV show, which lots of gore in that book.
Oh, no doubt. And in fact, if they did it black and white, it would probably help because there's some gruesomeness.
Oh man, just one of the deaths I just read like stuck with me like for a while. I was just like, man, that was gross.
And it stuck with whoever got killed as well when they got stuck with a zombie knife.
Oh,
shoot.
Oh,
lame segue. Not even a segue, but okay, so moving on, let's get into the meat of the show here. We're going to talk this week about CES, 3 letters that stand for the Consumer, I almost said Computer Electronics Show, Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, happens every year. Last year, this is the show that announced the Palm Pre, which you and Matt now own. And this year, a lot of fuss made about 3D television, which I want to start with because you actually, sir, experienced this in real life.
I did indeed. And I didn't even expect to. I was just at the mall with my girlfriend. We're walking around, and then it's like, come inside the Sony store and try out one of our new 3D HD TVs. I'm like, what? So I'm like, can we go in there? Like, I'm expecting it to be like dead center. It turns out to be like off in a corner somewhere. Mm-hmm. And like all these people are sort of gathered around. Like there's a guy there with like the glasses, like handing them to people and cleaning them. And there's like this kind of overweight kid like sitting on the couch, and like he has the glasses on, and he's playing. What they have is a PlayStation 3 hooked up, playing Wipeout in 3D. And I got to put them on. I got to play Wipeout in 3D.
Sweet, excellent choice for a 3D demo, by the way. That is something I'd want to try in 3D.
True, it is. It's a ride game, you know, and 3D is great for rides.
Yeah.
But my general consensus about it is, it's 3D. Like that's totally what 3D is. I put glasses on my head, and now things pop out of the screen.
So it works.
Yeah, and these glasses have batteries because they're the LCD kind.
Yeah.
I
So it was an LCD television?
Well, yeah. This is an LCD television, but that's different from what I mean. The glasses have shutters that are digital.
Right. Shutters.
Not
shutter
noticeable
specs, yeah.
at all. Like, I tried to see if I could hold them at an angle to see them going or anything like that. So
Right.
kudos to that. I walked around the TV and viewed it at different angles.
Yeah.
It has a pretty wide angle while still maintaining the 3D sensation. So that was actually pretty impressive.
Now, how would you rate the practicality of this? Because I think they're really pimping this for home, like for people to buy a 3D television or a 3D. I guess we should say it's a 3D capable television, right? Because the glasses only come into play from time to time. But
Right.
do you see this as practical? Like, will people do this?
I'll tell you what's not going to happen is people aren't going to just start wearing glasses to watch TV on a day-to-day basis.
Sure.
That doesn't make sense. That is not feasible. You might as well be like, well, new surround sound, which is a helmet you wear. Ooh,
It just reminds me of the one article I read in like an audio magazine that said, of course, the human head does dampen some of the sound. And it's like, well, what am I supposed to do about that?
Exactly.
Anyway, go
well,
ahead.
yeah. And I think like people are bringing up good points. Like these are glasses that are battery powered, so they're going to run out, and you're going to need to charge them from time to time. You're going to have situations where you have only so many glasses, and you have a group of friends over, and like, all right, you have to sit in the corner and kind of squint and cross your eyes. It's going to make some problems, but I think the main appeal should be that it's 3D if you want it. You can flick a switch and your movie, which was 2D, is 3D enabled, so now you can turn on the 3D or turn it off.
Yeah, I said this in the Avatar review, but I don't look forward to people watching that movie on DVD. And I think if those are the kind of films that are going to be coming out, and people think that they might be because, once Cameron sort of put his chips on the table, everybody follows. But if that happens, we're going to probably want to recreate that at home. I was reading the articles on Gizmodo about this, and the guy was saying that he thought it worked best when it was really big, plasma, and when it was shutter specs. Those were sort of his three magic ingredients. Now, you saw it on LCD. He seemed to think the LCD was too stuttery. What do you think? Was it?
Well, that's the reason why this is, like, what is a 3D? I tweeted about this. I can essentially go out and get Coraline right now and have 3D on my TV. Why am I spending the extra money?
I will say Coraline uses the red and blue.
Right.
Kind,
and
which is really
that's
bad.
the reason why, is because you need a very specific setup. Now, plasma, as is right now, has a high enough refresh rate to handle 3D easily. Not every LCD or LED TV does, but you can make a TV that goes at 120 hertz and what's necessary. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. It's bringing the fidelity that you get in the theater while watching 3D into the home.
What about the issue with the ends of the screen? Because even seeing Avatar in a giant theater, there are parts where it sort of clips off.
This projects holograms out so that you can see it in any direction. No, of course you have the ends of the screen.
No, but I mean, with a smaller screen, I would think that would be more noticeable.
Well, yeah, that's a matter of the content creation, like building around that. The same way like Avatar has to, or anybody has to, where you can't have items popping out and going off a certain point.
Right.
Especially if you're making this for a smaller screen. Now, I mean, I think the big news here isn't that we have TVs that support 3D or these glasses even. It's that the content of 3D is happening, where you have ESPN and Discovery Channel now saying they're going to have 3D stations or 3D broadcasts of the World Cup.
Okay.
You have a new Blu-ray standard coming out that has enough capacity to fit that second video reel on it at that second angle. So the media is now in play.
Right.
And now also they're creating 3D content more feasible by offering consumer grade 3D HD cameras or even professional grade, where you have the two lenses on them.
Yeah.
And
so you're saying it's not a flawed idea, because certainly everybody's rushing towards this. I hate to stop and ask the dumb question, but like, is it worth it? And you're saying it seems like it might be.
Well, I don't know if it's worth it for the consumer. I think that there's going to be some early adopters, but it'll be worth it so far as it's available readily if you just want to switch it on.
Yes.
But it's not at all game-changing like HD. It's not going to push people to buy new TVs as much. It will only be for people who, like the people who have surround sound in their homes. Some people are fine with stereo and see no reason to go the extra mile of having 7 speakers, but there are those people who really want to get it as best they can. And, like I did just realize that sports is a weird thing because often you want to watch that in groups, and I don't think sports bars are going to be handing out glasses anytime soon.
Yeah, here's your glasses. They're also covered in wing sauce.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. I'll tell you one thing that is not covered in wing sauce. No, that's not what I mean. One thing that is not available is the Apple iSlate or iTablet or whatever it's going to be called.
iSlate.
That we talked about on this show a while ago. Yeah, iSlate. We'll just say iSlate. It's rumored to have an announcement coming up. You had said this like January 28th or something. It maybe even by the time people hear this, there will be more information about that.
No, it's not this Friday, but yeah, later this month, Apple's holding their press event, and it will be announced. Okay,
so there you go. So that is coming, but in that's absence. Everyone and their mother this year invented a tablet. It's almost like you can hear people shouting, "Hooray!" like that Apple is still not made it available. Because just the short list here, you had the Lenovo IdeaPad, the Sony Dash, the HP Slate, the NVIDIA Tegra, the Dell Mini 5, which I like that name.
Well, Tegra is a processor, but go ahead.
They were showing off an Android.
It makes slates happen like cooler. It makes games on them possible. So
right. They were showing that off in tablets, and then the Freescale SmartBook, which is a Linux-based tablet. So many different things. And I didn't even mention ebooks, which were also exploding this year at CES. And I want to save ebook for a second, just to quickly run down some of the cool stuff. And I know you and I were both kind of interested in this Lenovo pad. This is a Linux-based pad. It's 1 gigahertz multi-touch tablet with Windows 7. But the cool part is it's a notebook PC until you just detach the screen and walk away. And when you do
run
that,
away, stealing the tablet from your friend.
Yeah, and when you do that, it switches from a Windows 7 PC to a Linux based mobile device, like has mobile access, and just a couple of kind of giant iconed apps become available that you can do basic functions with. But I thought that was cool, and it sounds like you liked that too.
Yeah, it actually kind of... There were a few things that seemed like they're plucked from the future or are just bizarre enough to be interesting, and this is one of them.
Right. In fact, there's a part in Avatar where the guy literally removes the data from his PC, slides it onto a flat piece of glass, and then walks away with it.
Yeah, and that's what... I mean, this is cool.
This is not that.
You're essentially buying 2 computers, but here's the thing, is that this whole thing costs under $1,000, presumably, when it comes out.
That's the sweet spot for a laptop these days. I mean, you can't be more than $1,000.
Yeah, I gotta say something though about these slates, which dawned on me, which is pretty cool. And in hindsight of the Microsoft press event, independently developed proprietary OSs are on making a major comeback.
Right, they're Android powered or they're Linux powered, but they have their own UI.
Yeah, which is something that like Microsoft for the longest time completely made not happen at all. Like, Windows came out and just everything was Windows. And that was all you could have on a computer. And people got upset and they got antitrust and all this stuff. But, man, that is not happening with slates. Like, everybody's developing their own interface, their own UI. And even if 7 is in some way incorporated, like, I think that just shows, like, 7 is a desktop thing. And I don't know how well it was prepared for this.
Yeah, when speaking of that, the Dell Mini 5, it's this 5-inch. It's weird. It fits somewhere between like the iPhone and like an actual like notepad. It's a 5-inch pad with Android on it, and it's Dell's sort of icon interface. And most of the hype about it was about that interface. Like people were saying, "Oh, really nice, easy to use, just a pleasure to use, multi-touch." The funny thing is, it can actually make calls this thing, but it's 5 inches.
Yeah.
So they said it feels like a hilarious like Carrot Top routine when you hold it up to your face, or I guess you could just speak to it or whatever. Something else they pointed out that when you have a 5-inch screen is like taking photos, like with the 5-megapixel camera. It's pretty wild. Like you hold up this 5-inch thing, and it's like their photo fills the entire screen.
Wow.
It looks a little silly. It's red. It's a slate. And, it's Dell's, so we'll see what that does. And then during Microsoft's keynote, which we'll get to a little bit more in detail, they showed off the HP Slate. The depressing thing about that to me was it looked cool, but Microsoft is rumored to have this Courier. So it feels like all of these are sort of Me Too's, to the Apple tablet and the MS Courier. Like, we don't have those, so instead, here's a bunch of stuff soon to be obsolete.
Right, like within the end of the month.
Yes.
Like, that's the sad part, is like, everybody has been like, man, these tablets are cool, but you just know Apple's gonna come out and everybody's gonna feel silly.
Like, people will just wither. And I say that, having no clue really what this Apple thing is still.
Right.
I've got inklings, but come on.
Yeah, I mean, everybody right now, I think, is kind of waiting for Apple to tell them why they want this.
Right, exactly.
Because right now, nobody, like, feels the need for it, but,
And I bet you... Like... Yeah, and I think at this point that Apple has probably delayed this just to meet some of the hype. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I get the feeling like the hype was much bigger than what they were making, and that they sort of did a little bit of redesigns to try to meet the expectation.
Yeah, the rumor is that this has been in works for freaking ever.
Right. Yeah,
and
exactly.
that it might be Steve Jobs' last thing, so he wants to make it good.
Yeah.
But that's all. We'll talk about that whenever that actually happens.
Yeah, so real quick about the ebooks, that they showed off a ton of them. A lot of the sort of new players were these large format ebooks that read newspaper. Read newspaper articles sort of full size.
Well, they feel more like a newspaper because the Nook can read newspaper articles.
No, yeah, I mean full format.
Right.
It's sort of like holding a newspaper, which I don't know if that's a better thing, but the Skiff was one of them. It's huge, it's super thin, it's super light, and they're also giving a color version a shot. Which is the thing I wanted to get to that really mattered the most about ebook this year is a company called Pixel Key, I don't know how you say it, has developed a new kind of display that actually goes from full color LCD when you're in the dark to e-ink or electronic ink when you're in the light. It's transformative ink or transformative display. And when the Gizmodo guys saw this, they basically said, okay, e-ink is dead. Like, this is the thing that people complain about with Kindle and with Nook, which for those who don't know, Nook is Barnes & Noble's, Kindle is Amazon's.
Right.
In the dark, you're out of luck. It's realistic ink, but you can't, read. And so this Pixel Key company has made this technology, and a couple of people are already signing up for it.
I feel like the whole ebook thing, though, is a little overhyped, and that's just another thing. Like, they're seeing the success of the Kindle and the success of the Nook and the presumptions about the iSlate, and so they kind of want to hop on board. It's kind of another Me Too situation. So I don't know how successful some of these things are going to be, especially considering, like, a newspaper is great, but in the end of the day, you can fold it and throw it in the fire. You don't.
That's true.
You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to put it in a carrying case and strap it over your shoulder and make sure nobody like cracks the screen. That's why I think still like a smaller form factor is best. For those.
I agree about the small form factor. I am excited about this new ink technology though, and I think they were even showing off kind of animation and things using e-ink. It's getting better. It's getting faster. Sure. But
new technology is always great. New technology is what you want from CES.
Exactly, and I think that was one of the bigger things. But let's move on to something that totally disappointed, and that is the Microsoft keynote.
Speaking of new technology.
Yeah, or as I like to call it, what you do when you have to give a keynote but have nothing to say. Let's just go back and forth here. Steve Ballmer gave this keynote. The guy is the he is the Saturday Night...
the Super Nintendo.
Yeah. This is the most botched intro. He is the Saturday Night Live version of himself. Like, they don't have to make skits after he's done. He has already done it. The guy is probably a genius. The guy is awesome. The guy makes business happen. Microsoft is doing better than ever. However, get this man off the stage.
I tweeted about this, but I really think that Microsoft would be so much better if Ballmer stepped down or kind of went on an extended vacation and they handed the keys of the company over to Jay Allard.
Well, no, the face of the company to Jay Allard.
Well, yeah, at least the face. They need a PR, but I mean, at events like this, people want to hear like from somebody reputable. I just think that even the direction Microsoft is going still kind of seems like this company is ex-Empire. You know, like they're not as big as they once were.
30 minutes into the talk, he just shouted, "Developers!
Developers, baby!"
Like, it's just, the guy isn't he's socially awkward.
He's trying to play things off.
Yeah.
You know, like, he's trying to be like, well, I was that way, but I realize I'm, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But no, he can't do that because he actually is a terrible human.
Well, okay, terrible at looking like a human.
Sorry, terrible at presentation.
At presenting
and
himself.
I gotta say, like, I attempted to listen to the keynote just on audio file. I couldn't find a way to watch it in video, like while I was at work or anything. But
sure, yeah, same here.
It was atrocious to listen to because not only you're dealing with the voice of Ballmer, but also Robbie Bach.
Yeah,
if you've ever watched Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
There's a character on there. I forget his name. He's always wearing a baseball cap. Taller guy.
Yeah, it's Super Dave.
Super Dave. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the guy that played Super Dave. He's like, hey, his voice is grating on purpose. Yeah.
We're gonna talk about Microsoft Natal and the great.
These are the guys. Yeah, we should probably stop this, but these are the guys who essentially they choose to put up front, and it's like, I think with all the money they have, they could probably do better.
It's no wonder that whenever Steve Jobs gives a press conference, people's pants light on fire.
Right.
Like, compared to that.
Yeah, Ballmer will put you in a chokehold. He really does seem like the football coach who, like, may snap at any moment and, like, kill everyone in the room.
He does. He's, like, grimacing a little bit the whole time, like, don't mess this up.
Yeah, he was even like, you're a terrible game player to the guy, and I'm like, man, those words would just, I would leave the company, like.
You're never going to amount to anything.
Yeah, it's so scary. Anyway, one last thing of just about the presentation before we try to tap into some content in this thing was during Robbie Bach's speech, he actually said in 2020.
2020 is much more than just the next generation of some games from Microsoft.
But anyway, let's talk about what little content there actually was during this thing. Game Room.
That was probably the biggest thing to come out of this thing.
Yeah, and it's not even that big.
Yeah,
sadly.
It's weird in a way because Game Room is essentially them trying to do what Xbox Live Arcade originally was again.
Right. Yeah, it's a service that essentially puts you in a virtual arcade, but the difference is you can play against PC players as well. It's a 360 virtual room. It smells a little of home.
You know what it's called?
What?
The Avatower.
Is that what your intro was about?
Yeah,
what is
exactly.
the Avatower?
Like, it is a 3-story high tower. Like, that's what your arcade is. That this is your game room, and so you can kind of allocate it however you'd like. So there is kind of a design your own place aesthetic to this, but it's not the same as PlayStation Home, which is what everybody kind of thought it was right off the bat. Like, you can't control your avatar. You don't get behind him and like walk around in 3D space. Okay. But you do.
So it's like a glorified menu, kind of.
Right. It's like a high graphics menu, but you'll see your avatar and your friend's avatars kind of walking around, playing the games that they're playing. So
you don't have to like wait in a virtual line like in Home.
That's the sucky thing about Home is like wait in this virtual line to play bowling.
And I mean, look, we all like long for the arcade days. I was over at a friend's house, and he actually had a 30-minute MP3 file on his computer that was just background arcade noise from like 1995.
Wow.
And I was like, oh man, it's almost depressing. It's like he's playing this audio file to just kind of relive those days. I think he had another one from like 1992, so it was like slightly different with like more Street Fighter or whatever. But yeah, it's like we all want to recreate that experience. But when I sit down and just fire up a live arcade game, like I just fire it up. I don't know if there's the need for the avatar.
So, well, I think they want to do that, but they also don't want to lose anything in terms of like the speed and the kind of like having a frictionless interface where you're just like, I want to play this game. So you go in, here's my tower, but I can ignore it, go here. But it does seem kind of cool. It's more whimsical. If there's like a game that they're promoting, they'll have like characters from it running around. Like my favorite thing was they had the little duck dragon from Adventure. For the 2600, kind of running around in 3D, even though it's this crappy, like, not even a bit,
pixelated,
thing. Yeah, I thought that was cool. But so here's the strategy: is every week they'll release 7 games, retro games on here. These games will come out at 3 price points.
Yeah,
there's $5 you can spend, and that allows you to play that game on both your Xbox and your PC.
Right.
Because Game Room is also on the PC.
Yeah, exactly.
$3 you can buy that game for one system.
Yeah.
So like you just have it on your Xbox and play it on there. And then for 50 cents...
Or the equivalent,
you can put in your quarters to play the game once until you lose, which is maybe kind of cool. Like, I understand the sentiment, but it also is kind of crappy whenever that is a third, or that's a sixth of the price of just buying it.
Right.
And then it's like, well, is this your crappy way of not having demos? But actually, I heard that there is a way to demo games, and that is by visiting your friends' arcades.
Yeah.
So, like, you can come visit my place and check out my game room, and the games there you'll be able to demo, I think, for a limited time. Like, you get a few free plays, and then you have to pay.
Yeah. I think there's something like this on Steam. I'm not a Steam user, but maybe if one of our Steam users can email us and just let me know. I think you can, like, share software with your friends, like, in a trial way.
Right.
Something like sort of like the old StarCraft, how you used to be able to install a spawn, on another computer, and just for the purposes of multiplay.
Yeah.
So that was something semi-big. They also dropped a little bit about Natal.
Yeah.
Which I know you're kind of getting more and more negative on. I am too. It's going to be coming out Christmas of this year, which, as one person put it, is as far away as it could possibly be. I mean, it's like an announcement to be like, it's coming out almost next year. It's like, what?
Which they can just as easily like push to 2011. Like if it takes it. And I'll just take a moment to say there was more bad news than good, I feel, about this, because one thing they announced is that they removed the proprietary processor, the custom processor that was in this thing, that was going to be doing all of the thinking for you, to cut the price point down. They want it to be in a certain price range. But in order to do that now, they're going to have it sucking processor power from the 360. I mean, some are saying, like, I think the official word is 10 to 15%, but some people are saying, like, this thing might actually end up taking up an entire core.
I just flashed in my head to, like, 2020, where there's like a dusty bin of old video game crap, and somebody's going, well, I even have a Natal, and somebody going, holy crap, I didn't know anybody bought one of those.
Yeah, it's like the 32X.
Yeah, it's starting
or
to
the
feel
Sega CD.
like a piece of plastic that is just gonna collect dust, like the iToy,
That hammers home that this thing is not going to be backward compatible. Unlike Sony's, which is, like, day one, they were like, this thing, this new motion control, if any developers want to add a patch to any games that are out today, they can do that and support this device.
Right, yeah.
Natal, no. Natal, like, even with the processor, they're saying, we don't know. But now it's like, no, because you're going to have to completely restructure the game to support that lack of processor power. Yeah. And Microsoft has the audacity almost to come out and be like, this will extend the lifetime a full another 5 years, Like,
yeah, I don't think so.
When people were like, well, I don't know if developers will support it, Robbie Bach,
says the dumbest thing.
He says, oh, well, actually, 70 to 80% of developers worldwide are making games for Natal.
Okay, so patently
not even
not
like
true.
Xbox developers or whatever.
Yeah, developers, like third world developers, people working on films are, also, yeah.
Exactly.
Good Lord. Well, that's Microsoft's real content. The rest of it was just mystifying. Like, they were like, computers!
Windows 7 is doing awesome.
Well, yeah, and the thing where he said, and we bing, and we bing, and we bing, bing, bing.
Bing, bing, bing.
It was like, what is happening? Am I in a swirling vortex here? Like, all they did was talk about what they've already done. Oh, gosh. But anyway, let's move on from that darkness to something a little lighter. There was some phone news. Last year, like I said, the Palm Pre was announced. This year, the Palm Pre is moving to Verizon, and they showed off the Palm Pre Plus and the Palm Pixie Plus. The Pixie Plus only gets just the Wi-Fi upgrade, but the Pre Plus actually gets quite a few little bells and whistles. They get rid of the button ball, for one. They doubled the RAM, they doubled the internal storage, and they slightly improved the keyboard. It's hard to tell when you read those kind of things when people touch the keyboard. It's sort of like reading a cigar magazine with it has a light nutty taste with a vegetal flavor, and you're like, I'm not sure what you're saying. They're like, it has a pushiness with a rubbery grip. You're like, okay, I just need to use it myself, I guess.
Yeah.
But then, the thing I think you're more excited about is that all Palm Pre-owners will be getting WebOS 1.4.
Yeah.
And that's going to have Flash capability, which is something the holy grail of all these smartphones is we can't freaking view Flash websites, Android is positioned to do this soon. I'm sure that Apple will. But WebOS 1.4, Flash capability, video recording capability, and then giving the developers access to the graphics hardware, which is one of the bigger things in terms of gaming. I know EA was showing off some stuff like Need for Speed style stuff.
Yeah, that is actually available now for me to EA games are available now for Palm Pre. I could get The Sims 3, I could get Need for Speed, like Oregon Trail. It's not 3D, but still cool. I was blown away. I turned on my app catalog and saw that, and I was like, neat. Like, things are actually getting high tech. I played Quake now on my Palm, which was it was kind of a hacky thing. Like it's free on like freeware,
right?
But
in your
it
hand.
was surreal. Like, this little phone I had that I used to make calls is now playing like full 30 frames. Like Quake with it's hard to control. They're still fleshing it out, but
it's like the days when we were playing Quake. We never imagined that one day we would pause it, then press it against our face to talk to our friends.
Exactly.
But yeah, so those kind of upgrades, and then you said there was something phone related that really appealed to you.
Yeah, this thing is awesome. The Palm Pre Plus will have the ability to tether. All right, but not just that, it can become a Wi-Fi hotspot for up to 5 other computers. So that means I'm out and about. I'm like, oh, well, there's no Wi-Fi here, but I have this 3G phone. Turn it on. Just turn on the hotspot app. And then it's like, all right, everybody, here's the name of the hotspot. We get out our computers, and now the one phone is serving up internet for 5 computers.
Yeah.
And I think they just released, I saw online now a picture of them using it in Europe on the current Palm Pre over there.
Yeah.
I don't know what the standards are different. I don't know if that technology is going to come to my Palm Pre. Right. I know that it can tether, but I don't know if it can do 5.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get hyperspeed access on one of those 5 computers if you do that. Yeah. But it is really a cool feature to have that out, because that's the kind of thing that they normally charge for. Like a little SIM card or a little card, PCMCIA, that slides into your laptop, and then you can access
you
their
usually
network.
Need to have a new plan and a new device for each device that you want to connect to their network, and this is I think incredibly generous.
Very smart.
Especially Verizon.
Yeah, very smart of Verizon, and the fact that Verizon is getting these WebOS phones means the platform will grow now leaps and bounds. I'm not saying it's going to take over Android or the dreaded iPhone, but it'll grow larger, and that's only it can only be a good thing for you and other pre-owners. Also, you said AT&T is going to get some WebOS phones.
Yeah,
but that sounded like they wouldn't be pre's.
Well, that's the kind of unusual thing is they showed a panel showing like here's the types of phones we're getting, and so they have like a BlackBerry, and on the screen was a Web OS icon, saying they're getting Web OS. Whether that be the Pre or the Pixie, I mean, it's probably some sort of variation on them, but I think the Plus is kind of an exclusive thing for now for Verizon.
Yeah, I'd love to see a new WebOS design, like a new hardware design, because the OS is great, no doubt about that. But I'd like to see.
Oh man, I'm in love with it.
Yeah, let's just put that aside, Rob. Or as they say, later. But speaking of phone-related stuff, before we close out our show, I want to get nostalgic, as we always like to do, and talk a little bit about something I've been doing on my phone, which is emulating Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo games. It's the thing I tweeted that I was upset about having a physical keyboard until I got these, and then realized, you can't pull these off on a touchscreen.
Right.
I'm sorry, but if you're playing Mario or Donkey Kong Country or whatever, or Sonic, you're gonna want to reach for a D-pad. And it's cool, but it also sort of confronted me with like the raw, naked fact that I am just worse at games now. And I think this is something everybody, there's a lot of speculation. Oh, maybe, no. Maybe it's just that, those old games, it's just nostalgia, man, or whatever. But when you go and you play them, you realize, no, I do suck a lot more. And the thing about all these is that there was no save data.
Mm-hmm.
Like the emulator itself, if you pay for the pay version, you get save states. So I'm trying to avoid that using the free version and just try to get through the game. And I realized, holy crap, we got through most of these games like in one sitting, or just like pausing it and leaving it running.
Yeah.
It seems so crazy now, but that's just how it was done. Like you didn't have save data, you had 3 lives and you were dead.
Remember like trying to look for like Mega Man 2 passwords? And they're like these weird configurations, like nobody's sure, like, what is it? Okay, so you put the dot there, your dot there, like we're looking back and forth. You screwed it up, oh man.
Right, and then like Sonic 3 actually like saved onto a battery. So I'm looking up online, like, how do I save in Donkey Kong, these old games?
Right.
And I'm visiting websites and I'm like, I didn't even know there would be articles on this stuff,
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you didn't have a battery cartridge, which was rare, you were using just raw gaming power.
It's what Metroid was like one of the first games to have saving, and so was Zelda. Like that was mind-shattering. You're like, wait, why? How can I possibly be expected to play a game that's 40 hours long?
Yeah, in one sitting.
It saves my progress.
Yeah,
which like that opened up a whole door to people. But yeah, I think what you're getting at is just like old games were hard.
Yeah, I'm going through Donkey Kong Country. I'm really liking it. Now, granted, I'm playing it on a phone, so my control is not ideal, but I was trying to make it to Candy Kong because she's the first place you can save like to the actual game.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if I can do this, then I can save the game and I can avoid that whole save state crap. In fact, my friend who has all these ROMs, he actually said he turns all that off. Like he doesn't believe you should play these with save states. It's just cheating.
Yeah. Dude, let me tell you what my big experience was Ninja Gaiden.
Okay.
The Ninja Gaiden game for Xbox, which is like amazing still, came with Ninja Gaiden 1, 2, and 3 also, like the originals. And so at one point I started playing through those, just, killing time. I'm in college, whatever.
Right.
And wow, if Ninja Gaiden 1 isn't so freaking hard. And I got to the last boss.
Oh wow.
And I'm fighting him and I'm dying each and every time. And what occurs to me is this game, this version of the game has save points. It has save data.
Right.
The original game you would die, you would start from level 1. And have to go back through. But also here's the big thing is people who beat that boss were epic. Like those people were legendary. And I don't think there's that sense of accomplishment, like of real accomplishment these much in games.
Geez, I saved my way through Half-Life 2. Like I mentioned last week, one of my favorite games of all time, and it's just I would not have been able to play it had it been one of these, old school 16-bit era games. I would have like 1% health, load the quick save, move slightly a bit forward, get murdered, load the quick save.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid mocked you for the amount of saves that you did. in that game. Like, Psycho Mantis was like, I see you've saved frequently. You're either a very prudent person or a coward.
Yeah, but like you said, those were, you could separate out who were the good players.
And
because you just had to have the guts.
Exactly. And I don't know if it's around still online, but if you can, try and look up, I think Giant Bomb or somebody had this guy who tried to play and beat Abadox. Which for his money was the one game that he could never beat, in that like you couldn't even get past the first level. It's like one of the hardest games ever, and partly because of this whole like being knocked back to the beginning if you lose. And so there are videos of people beating Abadox like on YouTube and just losing it, or getting almost to the end, and like it gets to the point where it's like muscle memory, because like stuff is flying at you so fast you have to like just know ahead of time.
Yeah, it brought back feelings that I haven't experienced since I was like 12, which is the thing of like psyching yourself out, like knowing that you only have one life left is a feeling that I haven't had in a long time. You know, like going through a level like, okay, if I don't do it this time, I will have to go to the beginning of the game. You know?
Right.
So I'm suddenly really nervous, and because of that, like I'm performing worse.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, shoot, come on, stay out of your own head. And then all those weird techniques that we would do, like, okay, don't watch me, guys. Like, go into the other room or something.
Yeah.
You know? Like, you start to believe in, like, all that football fan voodoo where you're like, hey, you're too close to the TV, you know? Or, okay, let me just pause it for a second. Okay, whew. All right, here we go.
Fast finger. Yeah, we did. We used to, like, pause and, like, go take a break and, like... eat something. Like
because that was our last continue. Yeah, and so much was riding on it that it's like, you know, you're in the... God only knows like what it's like to be in like the Super Bowl, you know, with the last like 3 seconds of the game and have to kick or something, because, you know, I've just couldn't handle that pressure.
Yeah, but you know what? I still think there's something to be said about that. There's something to be said about hard games. I'm actually kind of like thinking if and when I get a PS3, I want to get Demon's Souls, or I want to try it out, just because I'm impressed by how difficult that game is, you know, like, and still like...
It won GameSpot's Game of the Year. Did you read that?
Oh, I didn't read that. That's hardcore.
The fact that you haven't looked at GameSpot's Game of the Year is such a sign of the times too.
Yeah,
because that used to be our go-to thing, like the gold standard, and now it's just like withered away.
Yeah,
know?
But
yeah, that was their pick. Very controversial.
I definitely, but I really can get behind like a true, you know, gameplay experience. Like the feeling of accomplishment with beating that is so much more.
Right.
And I'm like. I'm thinking to myself, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a game, like some sort of flash game, where it's the most difficult thing, and at the end of the game, there's a red button you can push, and a guy who tells you, if you push this button, it erases the game from the internet, from existence.
Oh, no.
Nobody else can play it.
Yeah.
And so you will stand as the only person to beat this game,
right?
Or do you not push that button and leave it open for other people to enjoy the experience of playing that game?
Yeah, well, there's the geek comedian named Ernie Klein who does this, you know, amazing routine about you wouldn't last 5 seconds back in 1987, you know. But his tagline, you know, is like, you know, the games just got harder and faster until you died, just like life. And I think that's what people who play Demon's Souls, you know, are attempting to get at, is like those feelings are more like it's like life. It's giving you the odds that life has, not that video games have, you know.
Which is why I think people were more accustomed to that back in the day when they were playing games that were that difficult.
Right.
Because there wasn't any sort of like, you know, perception that you should be saved, you know, from your mistakes or from failures. It's like, no, you get one shot and you lose, so that's it, you know. And I think people were originally talking about like old games were things like Atomic Core Engineer.
Right.
Where like simulate what it actually feels like to work at a nuclear power plant. And like it's the most boring thing. It's a job, but to people that was interesting, you know, like the idea of simulation. But these days, you know, it really is just, I think there's so much just reward for little effort that gamers are actually kind of becoming spoiled and maybe feel entitled.
Yes,
which,
and I am among them for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I am spoiled and entitled.
I think I am among that, but I'm aware of it and I want to get away from it. But I still haven't played Far Cry 2 in a while.
Exactly. And that's what happens when you get old,
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff happens. But hey, thank you for listening to our show this week. If you've made it this far, we appreciate it. And if you would like to send us an email, participate in the show that way, you may do so. Our email address is mail@growing-up-geek.com. You can also follow us on Twitter throughout the week to get your fix of geeky stuff at twitter.com/GUGBrad and GUGRob. Once again, thank you for listening. My name is Brad.
I am Rob.
And we will catch you next week.